My name is Kevin Conrad. I'm an audit senior manager serving Deloitte's life sciences practice here in San Diego. And I also have a role in our national audit leader. I'm serving the life sciences industry as a whole. And so I'm here to bring a little bit of the financial reporting perspective, a little bit of digital controllership, as well as just some of the risks and opportunities that Deloitte as a firm has kind of been publishing and seeing across the nation. And with that, kind of weaving that into the positive outlook that Ford had mentioned before of while we have some risks here, there's definitely some opportunities. I'm going to keep that as our primary focus. I myself am kind of that glass half full person, so I want to make sure that we keep that message in our community as well.
Kevin, in the audit world, and what you guys have seen at Deloitte, you're not showing up and doing the traditional, darken the boardroom with blue suits and audit. How's that working with you guys? It's
been an experience, I'll say. Shifting to a virtual environment was kind of put your money where your mouth is opportunity. You hear about, oh, we can probably move some of this virtual. We can digitize this a bit, or maybe we can move to electronic delivery for supporting documents and things like that. And being able to respond as quickly as I think we did, given the size that we are, is pretty impressive. I think it was like a light switch for a lot of folks to make that overnight adjustment. I don't know about the rest of everyone, but when I think it was about mid-March is when we started to enter into this work from home phase, and we've been in it ever since. And at least so far, I don't think that there's any plans for us to return to an office environment until at least after Labor Day. And of course, that remains to be seen based on how the pandemic continues here in the near future. I'd also like to give a shout out to the various companies that have also made this shift and helped work with us, as well as I'm sure with all the other providers on setting up Zoom calls in place of regular conference meetings, or missing out on some of that collaborative in-person casual conversation that used to be so essential to all of our day-to-day business lives. And forcing us to kind of rethink how we can stay in touch with each other and communicate those needs in various work streams and deliverables has been eye-opening. But I think it's been positive, and I think we're going to see some pretty interesting changes to not only the talent model that a lot of companies will deploy, but I think the talent model going forward. I think it was probably maybe a swifter kick into disrupting the workplace than we originally thought. But I think there's a lot of good things that we can take away from it. And you've seen, some of the largest tech companies have already started to move towards that. With, I think Twitter now basically is I think permanent work from home as an example. And some of the other tech companies are, looking to employ talent across the country and not just in their geographic location of their office. So it's been an interesting experience, to say the least.
What are you seeing as the risks that are starting to emerge as we go back to into the office and easing the work from home environment and mandates? I was looking at one statistic this morning, and it said that 64% of Americans would blame the company, not the hacker, for a loss of personal data. And as the rules change and as there's shifts, that seemed, I've seen chaos, I've seen really well planned transitions, and maybe each of you could opine on what do you think the top risks are that we're going to face as we start bouncing back from this work from home and shelter in place mandate. Start with Kevin.
Sure. So one of the challenges I think that we're going to continue to see, at least from like a clinical stage development company side, is how do we manage lab space and access to that lab space if social distancing and mask coverings and things like that are still going to be required, and how are you able to safely conduct that ongoing research in a way that'll both have employees feeling safe to do that and comfortable to put themselves back there, as well as and Jeff will probably speak to this a bit more. Is just what does that mean as an exposure to the company if you have people operating in a physical environment? So I imagine we're going to see quite a bit more challenges on at least the lab and the research side, and then from a traditional office environment, I think we'll probably see some roles just may never repatriate back to a traditional office environment. I think there's some opportunity there for some roles to kind of stay in that remote sense. So it'll be interesting to see who does what and when. And I think there's quite a few people that are sitting on the sidelines, kind of looking left or right to see what other organizations and companies are going to do, and build their plans from there. I think it's a bit of the Wild West in terms of what's going to make the most sense, and how's that going to work. And then again, from an opportunities perspective, that allows companies that may not have looked for a talent pool in other locales or regions, that they can now consider those positions if they're going to be moving away from the traditional show up at a desk type environment. I think it's going to be an interesting one, and I'm curious to see who's going to be the first major player on the scene to set that trend, and how the data follows that.
We all have we're talking about exit plans as we go back into the new coming out of work from home, and what are the ways that we're going to get back to normal. What can you share some of what your plans are, where your plans are right now, knowing that obviously this is an iterative process and we're going through feeling this out as we go. What are you guys seeing out there as the key elements, or any innovative ideas around how to get back to work?
I'd say it's very industry and company dependent. I think the services industry, the professional advisor industry, will probably continue to be agile and dynamic to how that's going to shake out, whether that's a mixture of doing everything virtually, keeping everybody at home, whether that's limited rotations in the office, maybe there's a schedule, an on-off schedule between, what teams or what groups can be in an office environment to maintain, a safe environment is going to be a challenge. I think there's still some pieces there, as well as whether or not your talent wants to come back, and if they're comfortable with that, and how that plays into some of the decision making. I think, and then of course, the designation of essential versus non-essential, and how do you comply with all the different requirements and navigate a regulatory landscape that evolves seemingly every other day, in terms of who we've got, guidance coming from the county, we have guidance coming from the state, we have guidance coming from the federal level, at different stages, and how do you navigate that? So I think we're going to be it's going to be a little bit of cat and mouse. We'll see some companies are going to be trying some stuff. We'll get some data from that and see how that works. And I think from there it's just going to be a case by case. I don't think there's any one perfect way to do it. I think there's a lot more factors at play now that I think people are a lot more cognizant of, especially if you think of, some folks have, high risk families maybe, or are coming from a high risk community, and how do you navigate, accommodating that with also meeting your business mission, and your clients' needs. So I think we're going to see some interesting changes, and I think an emphasis on this virtual environment, Zoom meetings, team meetings. I think another one out there is 8x8. There's all kinds of collaborative tools that I think are helping us, navigate this and maybe alleviate some of that immediate desire to go back, so to speak. And I think too, right?
Yeah, that's that.
On that, you've got the impact of the traditional roadshow financing model, right? You would typically, as a company, if you're looking to raise that next round of financing or funding, you'd be engaging with your various partners, or leveraging your network to get connected with your next potential investor, having those conversations, meetings in person, maybe demonstrating your product or your science, in doing a lot of that. And that traditional kind of roadshow model of traveling, across the country, even to different states and different cities, is changing and evolving, and kind of impacting the way that what you would see traditionally from a capital standpoint is going to be something that's going to be, I think, ripe for innovation, and we'll see how long that push lasts.
What are you seeing as the biggest challenge for your SMB clients as they return to the workplace or readjust?
And to re-leverage and reconnect with your network. There's a lot of opportunity and a lot of people out there that, to Jeff and Justin's point, there's there's a lot of advisors out there that have seen or have experienced these things, or can connect you to someone who has. And especially in San Diego, in our business community here, that tends to be a lot more open and collaborative. There's going to be someone who's willing to extend that helping hand, and just being able to raise your hand and say, I'm looking for that help. I think there's a lot of people looking to respond to that, especially to think about those traditional avenues of mixers or happy hours or networking events or other areas that you would normally go and seek that advice, or maybe make it as a goal to find someone to connect with in that space. It's different now, but I think it's still there. I think people are still definitely eager and ready and willing to help.
Good one. And I think I would see the converse in this is that SMBs are better positioned to be nimble and pivot, and take advantage of opportunity that may present itself. So I think there's equal, I see that as almost a glass half full for issue for the smaller end of that SMB that have resources. They're not, frail, and can actually execute a pivot. We'll go on to Kevin. You were talking about some of this in your response to the last question, so we'll continue with you. Is there any other innovations? The question from Steve: what innovations, pivots in marketing or lead generation have you seen, and are people doing? How are you creating new relationships and going out to get new business? Justin, we heard your thoughts on this. Kevin, you had some ideas there. Reconnecting with network. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of different professional service firms, including ourselves, that are putting out regular updates, whether that's through hour-long webinars, whether that's through pre-recorded, panelist type environments, like what we're doing right now is a perfect example of that. There's going to be a different way of doing it, but that it's not impossible. It's harder to invite someone to go for a beer when nobody is open and able to serve. It's definitely cut off one of our easiest avenues to connect. But there's tons of stuff going on with virtual presentations, virtual conferences. Whether that also includes breakout rooms or mixers. If anything, actually, some of the smaller breakout rooms, even though Zoom can be, a little bit difficult at first, maybe a little awkward, it's almost easier because you're in smaller groups at first. You're in groups of 5, 6 or less. You can get a chance to everybody have a seat at the table, so to speak. So I think it's helping in that regard, but it requires a little bit more, I'd say, drive and creativity than it did before. And I don't think there's really a one size fits all. I think it's, instead of pounding pavement now, I think we're all pounding LinkedIn and keeping our contact list refreshed. But then also, figuring out ways to just touch base with people. Not even from a business perspective, but just keeping close with your fellow colleagues out in the marketplace, and just understanding that needs are shifting all the time, and how do you stay close? Is it now a phone call versus a meeting at the bar instead of a round of golf, that kind of thing. It's a challenge. It's definitely
golf courses are open, Kevin.
Golf
courses are open.
There's my limitation. I'm an aspiring golfer, currently working my way from the putt up.
What do you see as sustainable competitive advantage and sustainable practices that people are adopting right now? Not just limited to the reporting and things.
I would say, there's always the opportunity to promote what changes you've made from a supply chain perspective, from understanding, well, am I particularly exposed in this one location or another that the pandemic is stressing? Is that gonna cause me to have to move things around? And how can I take that and say, this is how we responded as a company, to both rethink and evaluate our position and strategy. Kind of pushing that corporate and social governance responsibility that we're seeing get increased emphasis and focus across the charts. It's not limited to any one industry, I don't think.